my name is Iris, and I'm currently a mom to Hannah and a wife to Daniel, and we have a baby along the way. I'm also a operating room nurse, and I love just seeing all the gnarly surgeries at work every day.
My name's Sam. For those of you that care, I'm a type 8 on the Enneagram, an ENTJ, passionate about winning. Currently, I am married to a lovely wife, and I am also an entrepreneur with a boba shop called Boba Drive.
My name is Frances. I'm a creative multi-hyphenate entrepreneur. I am newly married, and I am passionate about traveling, my dog Willow, and pruning my rose bushes right now. On today's inaugural episode, we're going to tell you what the show is all about. We're also going to be talking about what worthiness means and what it's like to experience that during this time. We're also going to talk about what it means to rest, what it means to just be, and we're also going to talk a little bit about bugs. Stay till the end because we're going to give you a preview of some of the show topics we're thinking about. And don't forget that we don't have a name for the show yet, so we're going to be depending on you to help us with that. Hey guys, welcome to our show, a show that doesn't have a name yet. My name is Frances, and I'm joined by Sam and Iris.
All right, so first off, I'm so glad we could talk without masks on.
Yep.
Iris got vaccinated recently. You got tested. I caught COVID 2 months ago, so I'm still like the safest person in the world, technically. And we'll just go with that.
Sounds good.
Cool. So maybe today we could tell you guys a little bit about what the show's about. So Iris, do you want to kind of kick it off?
Yeah, this is a show about relationships, all sorts of relationships, whether it be romantic or friendships or parental relationships or just any relationship that you can think of. We're here to talk about that and explore those ideas. And we just think that relationships are just so interesting and important because they are applicable to all of our lives and they exist whether we like them or not in each of our daily lives.
Yeah, I think we just really wanted a broad topic that just sums up life, and it just gives us an excuse to sit here and chat.
Exactly.
Yeah. And we all like to talk, so that's why we're here. And I think, you know, me and my sister, we have a saying, like, life is in session. And we always say that when, like, things get hard or when there's a lot going on. And I think that so many things happen in life that we should talk about, but actually as society, sometimes we don't really talk about it. And so I think for me, I really hope that this space and gives us an avenue just to talk about the things that maybe we don't usually talk about with people, and we get to explore so many different themes and just kind of talk things out, because life is real, things are unpredictable, we can just figure it out together.
Yeah.
Yeah. So today I thought maybe for our first show, we could talk a little bit about worthiness, and I think it's a huge topic, but I think, you know, I was talking with a friend 2 weeks ago, and I feel like, first of all, I just want to encourage everyone, we're in a new year, you know, and I think it's important that, like, we start the new year off on the right foot, and knowing that you are enough, you're good enough, you're worthy to live the life that you intend to lead and live for yourself. And I think for me, I was talking to this friend, she's a very renowned wedding planner, very experienced for the last 10 years. And literally one day she just called me and she was like, you know, I am so overwhelmed with like this one particular client, and I actually feel like I want to give up on this client and give my her wedding to you for you to execute and do. And I just remember when I heard that, I just felt so sad because I think in part a lot of it was also started with COVID. I think with the pandemic, a lot of people went through different life changes, et cetera. But I think in life, there's so many things that kind of wear you down, right? Whether it's like things that other people tell you, other people's critiques, that make you kind of lose confidence in yourself. And I think for me and her, I just felt like I just encouraged her not to give up on that wedding because, you know, I think in that moment, sometimes when you face criticism or you're just tired of what's happening, you kind of forget the confidence that actually lives within you. And you forget like the special talent and the special skills that are within that you're meant to share with the world. So that kind of just got me thinking like how many people actually deal with the issue of worthiness and feeling like you're worthy of the life that you want to live.
So was it a situation where she felt like she just couldn't handle the client, and then because of that she's like, I don't want to do this?
Yeah, I think there was a lot of things happening. Like she had some things happening with her husband, and then with this particular client, like, you know, she just felt like design-wise, she couldn't nail it. And then she also started feeling iced out by the client. So I think all of those things, and then just also with her personal life, she just started feeling like really weighed down to a point where she just felt like giving up. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think COVID also does that to all of us. There's been way more days in the last year where I'm just laying in bed. I'm like, there's nothing worth getting up for. Like, you know, shop sucks because it's like slow, or I have to do all this stuff, and I'd rather just put it off. So I'm just gonna lay here and hope it goes away on its own.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I just think this is such an interesting topic, especially in light of like this past year, because I think so many of us have just gone through really like unpredictable changes. I mean, for myself personally, I mean, I quit my job at the beginning of COVID, and then, you know, now I'm living this like completely different life as like a mom, a stay-at-home mom that I've like, and I'm used to being active and busy, and that has like really, I think, challenged me to really identify like where does my worth, or where does like my identity, or, you know, like just how I spend my day was so dictated, I think, by the things that, you know, I found value in, and I found value maybe, or things that brought value to my own life. And, you know, just because all of a sudden there was like this huge halt, and like I did like this huge like career change and my schedule changed, it really like kind of messed with like how I saw myself and where my value was and where my worth was. And so, yeah, I think this topic is definitely something that I think is so relevant to all of us. And like sometimes I think it's like subconsciously, like we live with it every single day, but we never really understand or take the time to really explore why it like really, you know, like dictates how we live our life every single day.
Yeah, I do wonder if like because all of a sudden like so many aspects of life came to a halt, then people face this question more and just face the reality of it. Whereas maybe before, if you're constantly busy and doing the hustle and bustle of life, these things don't matter as much because, oh, I have something to do. I'm watching a movie. I'm going to eat at this restaurant with a friend, neither of which we can do now. And so I'm sitting at home like, do I really have friends? Like, do my friends care about me? No, I don't think so. It must be because, you know, like I'm bad at this, or I don't care enough in this regard. And I think, yeah, it definitely just weighs on a person, like even for myself too.
Totally, yeah. And I think actually you bring up a really interesting point in that, like, because we have more quote unquote downtime these days, we have more time to kind of reflect upon things overall. And I think like worthiness, or just our worth, and like maybe just self-reflection and all this stuff just starts coming up. And I think I think worthiness, a part of it is just like, a part of it's just wondering like what brings up like, or what contributes to our worth, or like what gives us that like value. And I think these things are starting to come to light a lot of times, especially this year, because we have time to just kind of reflect on what those things are.
Totally. And I think, you know, that's kind of the blessing of the pandemic, is that I think, you know, just like what you said, Sam, is like in normal circumstances, we're so busy that even if we had issues and we knew that we had issues, we don't even face it.
Yeah,
right?
that's so
because
true.
we're just going to pile everything on. But I think during this time, it really kind of made us actually face every one of our own realities.
Yeah.
Myself included too. So I actually kind of looked up the definition of what worthiness means in the dictionary, and it really comes down to their definition is the quality and the value of being good enough. And so I think like sometimes like worthiness sounds like such a big topic, but actually it's just something that's like the feeling of like, are you good enough? Are you worthy? Or are you worth whatever it is that you're seeking?
Yeah.
So that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even in our own recent life group, like one of the topics was, oh, how do you like stop being, you know, the cliche, a human doing versus a human being. But then even, I threw a question back out there because I was like, well, even the act of being a proper human being, there's a lot of doing to being this human being. So even by being, you're still a doing. And so it just seems really tough. And like even like if we're sitting here like, all right, I'm gonna focus this year to like being a better human being and just knowing I'm good enough. But like that doesn't mean you can just sit there and do nothing. And then I think that's where, I don't know, for me personally, there's just this dissonance of it where I don't know how to like approach that.
Yeah. Me too.
Well, I guess, you know, I think everybody always has come into feelings of feeling unworthy. So I guess what are the things that, like, I mean, because when we start out as like people and as, you know, we are meant to be like whole, right? But things happen along the way that kind of chip off like our wholeness, and it starts making us question like whether we are good enough. So what are some of the things, like, you know, you guys all shared during this time that you guys have gone through those where you're like, hey, am I good enough? Am I doing the right thing? Like, what are some of the things that you've personally done or have had to tell yourself to get yourself out of that hole of feeling like you're not good enough or you're not worthy? Because it really is something that totally just robs you of who you are and your confidence if it's something that you don't kind of nip in the bud.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I think, what immediately pops up in my mind is that, you know, most of my days now is I spend cleaning messes, you know, really. If it's Cheerios or spilled milk or, I don't know, like sticky gummies everywhere or toys, you know, like literally, I think I remember one day, like in the beginning of like this whole pandemic, I was like, what? Like literally like picking up like food crumbs on the floor. And I'm like, this is probably like the 6th time I've done this today. Like, what am I doing? Like, who am I? And like, you know, like, where's the worth in all this stuff? Like, who am I? Who have I become? Am I even doing the right thing? You know, like, is this like what I'm meant to do? You know, like after, you know, being somebody who like, you know, like I went to school, I had a career, and now I'm doing this. And I think like, but when I kind of pulled myself back and kind of had a few moments to kind of reflect on it, you know, I was like, these are like the small things, but truly like, I think what gives me a lot of my value and my joy and my worth right now is being a mom and being able to be there for like my kid, you know, and being able to like be present and to experience the messes, but also the joys, you know. And so I think it was good in the sense that like, I think a lot of times because we've had like what we talked about, we have this time to kind of reflect, it really kind of helps you refine a little bit more of like, maybe sometimes the surface level things don't seem that glamorous or that great, or you think it doesn't really bring you worth or joy. But if you kind of take a step back and, you know, ask yourself like, why am I doing these things? And maybe it's just not a fun time or a fun season necessarily, or it's not glamorous or sparkly. But sometimes deep down, like there is a refinement process that we're all going through too, to kind of help us discover like the greater part of why we're doing what we're doing too. And I think that is really what solidifies like true worth and true value and like the confidence that you need to continue to keep going in what you're doing. So yeah, I think that was a little reflection that I had while picking up Cheerios.
Was a big part of that just kind of like you realize it's a different season of your life where now, right, you're the stay-at-home mom and you get all this time with Hannah?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's just, yeah, maybe, I don't know if it's a change in expectations or just accepting, you know, like a new role in general. But I think also making that transition into like, maybe seeing that this role is something that's worthy for me to be spending so much time on and to be putting so much of my effort and my energy into.
Yeah, I think for me, one big struggle has always been like enjoying the process or the journey because I just want to see the end results. I don't want to like dilly dad and like smell the roses. Like, no, just get me to get me to point B. But I think a huge part of that journey is learning the ups and downs, and I think that's what makes it hard because during the downs of the journey, you're really wondering, oh, is this what I'm supposed to be doing?
Totally.
Like why, right? Like in your case, why am I picking up crumbs?
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, I think part of, I guess, like being married, like Esther loves the like journey and like the experience. So I think it's rubbed off a lot. I'm like, okay, I get it now. So I think, yeah, especially during COVID with like the shop, right? We can't have indoor customers anymore. And the whole goal of our boba shop was to let it be a place where people can gather. And obviously that's taken away. I think a good that's come out of it is that we get to, not that like our drinks were bad before, but now this is the only reason people are coming. Like, our drinks have to be good. Hey, Willow. But then the problem now is like, it removed the original purpose for the shop. And then I think for me, a lot of issues now that come up is, well, we're renting this relatively larger space and we're spending, you know, however much money we are on it, but it doesn't even get to fulfill its main purpose. And so I think, yeah, that's where it's tough at times because I'm like, all right, well, we're blessed in the sense that we still get to meet our monthly bills. We're still like breaking even. We don't need to close. That's great. But we're not fulfilling the main reason why like Quan and myself wanted to start this shop. And I think it's just tough because no matter what, like, there's nothing we can do to revert us back to that purpose. But I think it's been nice because then, you know, we have friends or like loyal customers from before that have messaged us, like shot us an email. There's one, like, it was super random. This lady just emails us. She's like, hey, yeah, we just like really want to support you guys. Like, we love Boba Drive and we wish we could like come back, sit in store again.
Wow.
And then they're like, oh, and by the way, like, yeah, me and my boyfriend got engaged, and Boba Drive is actually a big part of the story. And I was
Wow.
like, what? Because they would like, every time they would fight or whatever, they would come to the shop and talk things over there. So it was their like peacemaking.
Their refuge place.
Their peacemaking like location. I was like, nice.
Maybe you'll cater their wedding.
Maybe, but I mean, right, like little things like that. I think even though, like when we heard that, I was like, oh sweet. So Boba Drive has done exactly what it was set out to do. But then I think it's still just so easy for that to fade away. Like even this one story, like it's a great story, but I think over time you're like, but we're not doing what we really set out to do in the beginning.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's such an interesting story that you share because I feel like I can totally relate because I think a lot of times, like, especially with what you're talking about, the situations, I think sometimes when you feel like you're not good enough, it's like the situations are like out of your control, right? And it happens from pivoting, you know? And I think I resonate with what you just said because even for me and during the pandemic, I also had to pivot my business every which way, right? Because gatherings and events and celebrations were just not allowed. So I found myself like pivoting and I probably did like 3 or 4 different projects, you know? But I think it was when I felt like I was putting 100% in every single pivot that I was doing and every transition I was doing, but still feeling like, what am I doing? You know, and I think that's kind of when the self-doubt started like to creep in and like kind of got the best of me. And then I had to like start, you know, getting myself to climb out of that hole.
How did you get yourself to climb out of that hole? Because I feel like that's sometimes a really hard process to do. Yeah,
I mean, I honestly, I think first it's like I had to recognize that there's sometimes like it hits a point where there's absolutely nothing that you can do. And I think just to even like realize that and let that soak in is important. Because that's the truth, right? Yeah. And I think for me, there's a part of me like innately, I'm a perfectionist, you know? And so I feel like just knowing that like sometimes like what's happening actually has nothing to do with me, you know? And I can only do so much and be, as much as I can be. And so I think just realizing that and then just honestly just putting everything like one step at a time, doing everything one step at a time.
Yeah, that's really good.
Because I think I always think on like the big level and I feel like I have to do all these things, but honestly just sometimes take a step back, right? And also I think just eliminating a lot of the negative voices like in my own personal mind. I think for me, I always talk to my sister and she's like the person that's always like, you know, reinvesting like that value of my self-worth back inside of me. But I think a lot of times like with worthiness and not feeling good enough, actually I feel like it starts with us, right? Ourselves as an individual. And so a lot of times it's about, I think, just changing the narrative within our own beings. And that's something that sounds hard to do, but it's actually not. I think if you just start eliminating some of the negativity, the negative voices that either you have or that other people tell you, and just start like replacing those with positivity, which I know sounds really like cliche, but like literally just like one step at a time and just like reminding yourself, hey, I can do this. I am like somebody that is talented in whatever field I'm doing, and I am going to conquer this, and I'm going to get through it. So I think it's a lot of like those positive like affirmations that I had to like tell myself to get myself out.
So was it mainly like self-affirmation or did you have outside sources as well?
I think you could have, yes, I had like other people like encouraging me, but ultimately had to come from myself. Because I think if you kind of build your value and your worth based off of like what other people say, like you're never going to feel whole. So like you actually have to kind of do that work within. And so that's kind of what I did. Yeah, I think that's such a great point because I think a lot of times when we're here because we want to talk about relationships, but I think sometimes we forget the greatest relationship sometimes is our relationship with ourselves and our own mind and our own like well-being and our mental like health, you know. And so I think a lot of times like that self-talk or like that negativity or being your worst critic sometimes, you're literally your worst critic and all the negative thoughts sometimes aren't
aren't warranted, or people don't even think that, but for some reason, like, it's just the narrative or that story that plays in your mind all the time. And I think that's like what you said, it's just so important to evaluate and to like be like, what I'm telling myself, A, is this even true? B, is this good for me that I'm repeating this story every day in my mind? And like, what good is it if I don't continue to change it? And I think really the change does start within yourself, because you can't be healthy if you don't change what your own mindset is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like I was reading this one book, I think ever since like we opened shop, it's been really hard for me to read books as regularly as I used to.
That's like a problem in my life in general.
Well, whatever excuse you want to use. But then I think because like my image of a mature person, like successful, whatever, is like this person is disciplined. So that means, that he or she is constantly doing all these daily rituals and observing all these daily things and disciplines that they incorporate into their life. And a big part of that is reading. But that's never been me growing up. And so I'm like, dude, I'm approaching 30, and like, I still don't have a semblance of this like repetition.
Like, hold on, you're only approaching 30 right now. That's like,
but that's not the main point. But it's like I still don't really have too much of a semblance of this repetition down. And then so I think for me, a lot of times I'm like, oh, am I really growing? Am I really maturing in the way that my mindset of, oh, this is what a mature person looks like? Am I doing that? And then I think a lot of times I feel like I'm not. But then, so this one book, it also talked about a lot of this like negative self-talk. And then what the author was saying was, oh, instead of saying like, I'm not a disciplined person and ending the statement there, you can add a yet at the end. And it's like, I'm not a disciplined person yet. And then so that I think that just gives, like just adding that one 3-letter word just adds so much hope to that statement. And then so I think just from that, I'm like, okay, all right, I'm not a disciplined reader yet. And I'm like, all right, let's see how this goes. And safe to say I've been reading a little bit more, so it feels a little bit better.
Yeah, no, that's good. What book did you read, just in case people want to follow your steps?
It's Limitless by Jim Quick. He's like he calls himself, I don't remember what he said. It's like some brain hacker. Yeah, but just basically how to like make your mind limitless. Yeah.
That sounds good. That sounds intense.
Yeah.
But speaking of reading as kids, like I don't know if you guys were like did this program, but like Pizza Hut used to offer this like reading for kids, and you would like read like 10 books and you get like a free pizza, and that's literally the only reason why I read as a kid. And like I have to say, I have not built that habit either, and that's always been on like my New Year's goals resolution, but yet I will still get there.
or like the book fairs that school used to hold, right? Like you like get to skip whatever period of class and you go to the library. I would just always buy like the most colorful books. And my mom's like, why are you bringing this home? Like this does nothing for you. I'm like, but look, Mom, it's like a Star Wars like Darth Vader lunchbox. Like, it has some reading material.
Totally.
So
that's how they get you, but they didn't last yet.
Yet.
Well, I feel like I'm the reverse because I was a total nerd, but proudly, like I loved reading.
And you still do, right?
I still do, but I feel like right now I'm at a place where it's hard for me to finish books. And so like kind of like along the same vein, like in the beginning of the year, I like probably downloaded like 7 books. Like I kid you not. Like, but the reality is maybe 4 are like, professional, like whatever. And then the other are like, I don't know, trashy nonfiction books that, like, I want to like partake in. But I'm having trouble finishing books these days. So maybe that's a discipline thing that I have to figure out.
I mean, so I think for a long time, I was just only reading like professional personal development type books. And then one of my friends like, no, you need to throw in fiction every now and then. And then, because I was saying like you, like during high school, I would read a ton of fiction books and just nonstop.
Yeah.
But then I think once I started doing this personal development track, it felt more like, man, if I'm not taking notes, I'm not utilizing my time well. And then all of a sudden it becomes a chore. I'm like, I don't want to do that. Like, no, thank you. But so one thing I decided to do to kind of help, so like recently I just ended up buying 2 fiction books and just like burned through them. Like, all right, now I gotta go back to this.
How good did that feel?
No,
when you
it
read
felt
those?
great.
Yeah.
Like, I don't remember the last time I read that fast.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like one of the books I read was Dune, which is like pretty hefty book, like 400 something pages. I finished that in a week. I'm like, I haven't read like this since I stayed up late at night with like, you know, a flashlight under my bed.
Good for you.
Yeah. So, you know, just gotta mix it up every now and then.
That's a good tip.
Yeah, mixing it up is good too, because I feel like, you know, as somebody that also like tries to achieve as much as possible, like sometimes you get so consumed in like self-help or like whatever that you're just always like in that spiral of like, oh, I need to do this, oh, I need to do that. And then that's also sometimes where you start feeling like, man, I'm not good enough because I'm not like doing all of these things and checking all those boxes that people say I should. So sometimes it's good to give yourself a break, right?
Yeah,
Totally,
yeah, because I think, like a lot of self-help is always, oh, you gotta follow these checklists and you're like advancing from stage 1 to stage 2, whatever. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I thought I'd be at stage 3 by now, but you're not. And you're like, well, I suck.
I'm worthless.
I know I'm left with all this anxiety.
Yeah. So I think for me personally, one thing I'm like, all right, I think at this point, most personal help books all revolve around the same stuff. So, you know, maybe I'll just tie in one every now and then, but bulk of my reading will probably be like, you know, different genres. Because I think, just trying that for the last few years, like, all right, haven't made much leeway, so let's see how this new system goes.
Yeah, that's really good. Okay, well, when I get back to reading, my habit of reading that I've never nurtured, I will make sure I incorporate that.
You gotta get Pizza Hut to bring back that program.
Yeah, they do.
It's okay. We'll buy you pizza.
Oh, wow. Okay.
We'll give you like stickers for every book you finish.
I'm all about stickers and pizza.
There you go. Yeah. I mean, I also wonder, like, for Francis, when you mentioned it's hard to finish stuff, I've noticed for me now, like, a lot of times I don't even want to start new things. Namely, like, most relatable is, like, new shows. Yeah. Especially since we have so much time during COVID. I was like, I don't know. Like, a lot of people like it, but I don't know if I can commit however long this season is to, like, watch it. And I do wonder if that's just, like, our attention spans are just changing with how technology is evolving. But I think, it also forces me to like jump between so many different topics. And I'm just like, I end up getting like information paralysis because there's just so much out there and I don't want to interact with any of it. And then all of a sudden I'm like back in a rut again. It's like, oh, well, I don't want to do anything, so I'm just gonna sit here.
It's honestly, I feel like it's so overwhelming to keep up with everything. And I think that's also like, I totally understand what you feel, because I feel like that's sometimes why I also feel like I don't want to start something, even though I feel like, yes, I've set this as a goal, or I know I want to do this, but I just can't get myself to do it.
Yeah.
It's just, and I feel like as we get older and we have more responsibilities, everything, even if it's enjoyment, starts feeling like a chore.
Yeah.
Right? Like for me, like on the topic of shows, right? Like me and my husband now. So weird.
Yay!
Anyway, we have like no overlapping interests, like actually, like except for like maybe one thing. But so it's really hard for us to watch shows. And I told him, I was like, hey, I'm somebody that like watches a ton of shows. Like I used to be that person where it's like if it's a new Netflix thing came out, I would like watch the whole thing. And so I told him, I was like, I actually need like a day where you don't bother me, you don't talk to me, and I'm just sitting there like watching all my shows. Yeah. And so that happened maybe for one weekend. And then like when I wanted to do that again, you know what I did? It was when like Bridgerton came out, which was actually, funny enough, a book that I read before the show came out. So I feel proud of myself for that.
Wow.
But even so, it's like that genre of like storytelling and just historical fiction is something that I love. But I couldn't get myself to like, even like, I don't know, I'm probably at episode 4. And I felt like during that time where I had set time aside to do that, I ended up going back and picking up a book, which is like so weird.
Wow.
So I feel like maybe we're just like older, we have so much responsibility, everything is overwhelming that we feel like we can't finish maybe some of the things we start.
Yeah, that's so interesting because I totally relate to that because I have kids, you know, like I literally, my free time is like 2 hours or 3 hours after she goes to sleep and before I have to go to sleep, you know, and like, you know, sometimes it's just like, okay, I have free time now. Like, what do I do with myself? And then I just end up getting so overwhelmed that I have free time and I don't end up doing anything productive, you know? And I just sit there like trying to choose like the best show, like too much paralysis. Like there's too many things I'm like 50 episodes behind on now, you know, and like I don't know what to do. Like, but yeah, that's just so interesting. And it's kind of weird because now, especially because most of us have more or quote unquote more time, right? Like sometimes that you're just so overwhelmed that you're like, I don't know what to do with it, which probably shows there's probably something a little bit off that I don't know what to do with myself now that I have so much time. But yeah, I think that's a really interesting observation.
Maybe do you think it just means that we need to rest more? It's like somehow, not the universe, because that's so broad, but just that actually tells us that we just need to rest instead of trying to do so many things.
I think
but
so.
When we actually are able to have that time and space to do it, we don't know how to do it.
Yeah. Maybe. No, totally. I think actually this year has shown me that, if anything, you know, now that I like have more time at home and I'm not, you know, busy doing this and that, I'm like, you know, I think at first I really this was a genuine struggle. I'm like, I don't know what to do with myself. And like, you know, I'm like, I don't know what to think about. And I'm like, you know, there's something weird about this. There's something wrong that I'm just like so uncomfortable being, you know, just like not busy, you know, and I think maybe in this culture, society, we just glorify maybe being busy so much that it's like a good thing. And I've definitely been a person of that nature, you know, and just always being on the go or always doing something or trying to be quote unquote productive or, you know, like ending my day laying in bed, be like, oh, I did everything that I wanted to do today. And nowadays, you know, just slowing down, it's like, it really has given me a new perspective on life. And like, maybe life doesn't have to be this busy. And like, there are so many other things that, you know, like I don't have to always be occupied to be happy or to be content or to feel like I'm worthy, really, you know, to feel like I'm productive or doing something.
Yeah.
I mean, I do wonder if a part of that is like we don't let ourselves rest because we feel like we haven't finished our checklist for the day, right? And because I know for me, there's a lot of time like, oh, I still have like all these things to do, but here I am like just sitting and like watching a show or just vegging out. But then it for me, it's like, it's a very bad cycle.
Yeah.
Because then I just like beat myself up over the fact that I didn't finish my checklist. But then because I didn't finish my checklist, I'm just sitting here being sad about it, which also makes me not want to work on the checklist
Totally.
even more.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure like a lot of people go through this at all times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it kind of goes back to what you were talking about earlier about just like being a human doing versus a human being, right? And I think so many of us are just, you know, we're so susceptible to being human doings. And like, you know, that's where we derive our worth from. And just really having to learn how to untrain ourselves from thinking that way and being that way. And I think, I mean, this year was a great time to do that. And I'm still learning how to do that. But it's very against my nature, I think, to do that.
I mean, what does rest look like for you two?
That's a really good question.
I have no idea. I mean, honestly, I feel like ever since I've been married, I really like the quote-unquote housewife life. Like, if I could just spend a day doing close to nothing, but just like cooking or like making something like that actually, or like that makes me really happy actually. It's like, that's like, for me, I think my simple place of being.
Yeah, I think similarly. I mean, I think just maybe sitting on the couch and like watching Hannah play, you know, as weird as that sounds, maybe like if she plays by herself, not like involving me necessarily, because that's tiring. But you know, that's a nice place of rest. I think just being with people that you love and just, you know, being in their presence, I think is rest for me, or at least rest for my soul.
Yeah. Because we're all like relatively extroverted, right? No? I mean, we are, but
You guys are. I'm actually a super introvert with extrovert qualities.
Oh, she's like, I could be both.
yeah, I could be better than you.
But I'm definitely somebody that will hole up for like days without talking
To people.
And
Yeah.
I need that. Yeah.
Because I do wonder, right? Because I resonate with what Iris brought up about, you know, when I see people that I truly care for, and it's just like, we just kind of do our own thing together, but we can't really do that now.
Yeah.
And so it's like and doing it over like a virtual setting or like FaceTime, Zoom or whatever, it's not the same.
It's not the same, yeah.
So I think that also kind of chips away at it too, where now, right, like if I were to answer the rest question, I don't know what rest looks like. I just sit there and I'm just on YouTube, but now I'm like, oh, I have all these other videos that YouTube's suggesting to me that I also want to watch, but that's going to take like another 2 hours. What do I do?
Yeah. Yeah, no, maybe we're still on this journey of figuring out what true rest looks like for all of us. It's it's a work in progress. And I think sometimes maybe seasons look different too, what rest looks like. But yeah, I'm still figuring it out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure everyone is. And it's just, I do think it's heavily tied into, right, just our own state of quote unquote being. And, our own value of like if we think we're worthy or not. Because I'm sure if we don't think we're worthy, we're not going to be okay with resting.
Totally.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a very good conclusion for like how we started.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you so much for sticking with us through our first episode. We just wanted to let you guys know a little bit more about how we want to structure our show. So the three of us will be your hosts on a monthly basis, and every month we're gonna invite 2 people to join us on our panel so we can just talk about life and relationships and anything else that you guys wanna talk about. So maybe we can share a little bit about what we were thinking of having for some show topics.
Yeah. I think one of our ideas was that we wanted to do live blind dating. And so, what are we going to do for that? We were thinking we would, I guess, whoever was down to do it, we would set them on a blind date, and then we would like
coach them through it.
Maybe do like an earpiece.
Bamboozle them in the middle of their day. Just kidding.
Well, we've heard that there's a lot of people, right, that like actually want to know more about dating and like tips, I guess, and other things. So we definitely want to be your relationship coaches.
Yeah, so part of that too, maybe we'll do like makeovers for people. There's also like good old like do's and don'ts in church. The whole if I sit next to this person, it's like we're gonna whisper, oh, they're dating. Different things like that.
The best and worst dates that we've heard of or we've been on ourselves.
And then some heavier topics. We cover like different things like our relationship to our parents, maybe how much like the culture that we grew up in has shaped kind of how we act and now. For singleness, right? Not everyone has to be romantic. Lots of other topics. Yeah, and as y'all know, we don't have a name yet, so
please help us.
Whatever you think that covers life, relationships, whatever, send us some comments and we'll weigh them.
So yeah, we'd love to know what you think of some of the ideas that we have for the show, like some of the speaking topics. If there's some ideas that you guys have that maybe we didn't list off, like drop it in the comments, let us know, and help us find a name for our show.
Yep.
Cool.
Yay, we're excited.
Thanks so much for joining us, and we will see you next month. Next month, I think we'll talk about dating since it is February, right? So let's just kind of, get right into it, have some fun. So let us know what you want to hear, what you want to talk about, and we'll see you next month.
Perfect.
Bye.
Bye.